Hey everyone, thanks for joining us in our Retention Masterclass series. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to learn about how winning brands pull revenue forward. And this is the second episode of our Masterclass series, directly pulled from our APAC Retention Report launched this year. Now, before we dive into it a little bit, if you're new to Eber, I'd like to introduce our 5 core solutions about who we are and what we do. So, standing on the pillars of loyalty, marketing, messaging, platform, as well as commerce, Eber is a retention platform for businesses to help retain and build engagement with your consumers. Now, before we begin, again, if you haven't gotten your hands on our latest consumer loyalty and APEC 2026 report, be sure to do so because we're excited to present the key findings from our latest research from this report. Now, as we're talking about revenue, the brands that we're seeing today are mostly waiting for the next purchase to make revenue. However, as we've been seeing, acquisition costs are rising, and with Meta CPL up to 21% on a year-on-year rate, and as well as Google CPL up to 24% prior increase, revenue today is often reactive and not very predictable. Other ways that we're seeing brands drive revenue are through things such as promotions, traffic, as well as loyalty. But what we're seeing is that promotions result in short term spikes. Traffic is becoming more and more expensive as we've just looked into it. And traditional loyalty is largely still tied to transactions. So, your challenge here is if revenue only comes after purchase, we're always behind. And promotions are just now the price of entry, not differentiation for your brand. And consumers today are very much promotional aware and price sensitive. Across the entire masterclass series, we've been talking and anchoring our learnings upon these 3 levels. So, our goal here is to be able to build a customer base that is sticky enough to sustain your entire business model as you scale, right? And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to build spend predictability, specifically through stored value, gift credits, and so on. And we're going to look a little bit into how brands today has been successfully building that revenue base to A, pull spend forward, B, increase basket confidence, and of course, your goal here is to reduce the dependence on constant discounting. The best brands don't wait for purchases, they create commitment. And they create commitment by focusing on these 3 key areas that we're going to talk about today. They help customers think about how to spend, and they create commitment by focusing on these 3 areas, which is spend, belong, and become. So, what does it mean to drive spend, and when do you drive spend? You drive spend through things such as store credits, gift cards, and so on. But when do you actually do that? It is best suited for high repeat transactional businesses where customers already spend regularly and there is low emotional brand connection. So it makes the most sense when you're still starting out in building emotional connection with your customers with a low emotional brand connection. And so let's consider a baseline example of a sushi shop, right? Where customers spend $80 per visit per table. And let's just say they come back twice a month. So you're going to have a total of $160 per table monthly if you're kind of thinking about that baseline perspective. Now, what happens if you pull spend forward using a stored value strategy? So this could look like when your customer pays an upfront of 200, they get a $220 value card. And that in itself is a $10 bonus for their upfront payment. According to our APEC Consumer Loyalty Report, FMB sees a 10% to 25% frequency uplift, which is an increased frequency once stored value is introduced. So if you're taking that benchmark in itself, you're seeing an extra 15% revenue uplift after introducing a pull spend forward strategy, and which means you get an upfront cash flow, you get higher visit frequencies, and you're also relying lower on promotions. The spend strategy is best for high repeat businesses such as F&B chains, retails with frequent visits, and also services such as salons and clinic. The next evolution asks, how do we make customers want to stay, not just return? And this leads us to the belong and become models, where we move beyond simple transactions. Now, moving beyond transactions, meaning creating status, identity, and belonging to turn customers into members. And this approach is actually very much ideal for brands with strong positioning, operating in, for example, a competitive market or wanting to reduce churn switching. Now, Costco does something most retailers are scared to do. It asks customers to commit before they shop, and that changes the relationship immediately. Because once you've paid to get in, you don't behave like a casual shopper anymore. You behave like a member. In fiscal year 2024, Costco reported a 4.8 billion in membership fee revenue alone. And that's nearly 137 million cardholders and about a 90% renewal rate overall. And more specifically, renewal was 92.9 in the US and Canada and 90.5% worldwide at the year end by 2024. Now, this shows that it is very much applicable through consumers worldwide. Now, what's really interesting is by Q2 fiscal year 2026, Costco had grown to an 82.1 million paid members and 147 million cardholders with a 92% renewal rate still. Costco's model showcases high trust, repeat behavior, and a strong value perception. When brands commit to membership, customers commit back, and this drives really impressive financial results as well. And Costco can keep pricing sharp because membership fees help fund the model. In other words, the membership is not just monetization, it is what gives Costco permission to keep delivering value. So the clearest lesson from Costco is that not all members are equal. And higher commitment members, like executive members, not only pay more fees, but also are seen to buy significantly more. And the core of the strategy revolves around building high trust, encouraging repeat behavior, and establishing that strong value perception. Because bridging emotional loyalty around your customers' transactional behaviors is what you're trying to build upon. Like our previous example about Costco, that's a really great example of showcasing how peak memberships actually fund revenue in such a strong and powerful way. To help your customers think about becoming a part of your brand's consumer identity, Panera did something really interesting. Panera is a premier fast casual bakery cafe chain known in the US and Canada. And what's really interesting about Panera was that they launched the Sip Club for $5 a month for 3 months. Consumers can join the unlimited Sip Club where they can get a drink every 2 hours or so. This is such an interesting take because it can show you how creative your brand can be when you start to think about campaigns to create that emotional loyalty and also building such an integrated habit within your consumers that they truly become that core part of your customer brand. And if you're wondering why some brands win at subscriptions and some don't, even though they're of the same business nature, such as a coffee shop, it's because subscription doesn't create behavior, it amplifies it. So the brands that win are already a part of their customers' routine. They're on the commute path, they're fast to pick up from, and on top of mind when that I need coffee moment hits, right? So when they introduce a subscription, it makes it so much easier to make an existing habit easier and more frequent. And the ones that struggle are trying to use subscription to force a new behavior. For example, to get customers to go out of their way, switch from their usual spot, or remember to use something that isn't naturally embedded in their day. And that rarely works because in reality, habit is driven by three things: a clear trigger, low friction, and being able to be the default choice. And if you're missing those, no pricing model, no matter how attractive, will turn that into a routine. So that's why it's so important to be able to build that emotional consistency and emotional loyalty. And so, as we come to the end of this episode, we've talked about how to build habits, we talked about how to build spend predictability and why it's so important to help reduce dependence on constant discounting, we're then going to move into a segment where we talk about how we can build sticky loyalty. And you can do that through building statuses, privileges, as well as membership privileges. And your goal here is to be able to create emotional switching costs. So you reduce that dependency from a transactional loyalty, then you reward consistency, not just mere transactions, and you turn loyalty into a conscious choice. So if you're interested in that, be sure to catch up for our next and very final episode of the Retention Masterclass series coming to you next month. So thank you so much again for being able to join today's session. And wherever you are, I hope you're having a beautiful, blessed day. If you have not gotten your hands on our APEC Consumer Loyalty Report and you would like to continue this conversation, be sure to reach out to us on eber.co as well as download this report. It is completely free for you, and you will get so much more insights about what's happening in the retention market today. So I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.